Howdy, folks. Oh, I've been on TV all day long, I tell you. Final demo for the day, I think, is building with soft slabs. So, you know, there's a difference between soft slabs and firm slabs, and by firm, we pretty much mean they will hold themselves up, right? Like a soft slab would be drooping a lot more. So firm is anywhere from this to being like really close to starting to change color. And you can build with those things, but they don't allow for any curvature. So I'm making a fish, and so I want some curvature, only slight. So it's a soft slab that's been sitting a little bit. So anyway, what I did, and what is a very good idea for building with soft slabs, is to make some patterns. So since you guys are doing abstracted animals, I thought, oh, I'll do a quick fish because it's a fairly easy form, and I think they kind of look great. So I made this as a half body, right? So my fish will be kind of on the ground. So and I'm planning on like a school of them, and then there'll be vases. So I'll have a hole in each one, so you can put kind of bud vases. So here's the base, and then I cut to the same length the body, and if you can see on my pattern it says ×2, so I'll have two of these bodies that will come together, one here, and then I'll pinch them together on the top so that they'll be kind of a triangulation of the form. And then in the back here where the tail comes together, I made a little extra triangle so that we can triangulate that tail. So when you're cutting paper patterns, you can just tape them together. I would recommend using blue tape if you're going to do that, but then you can kind of decide on the scale of a piece and what kind of shapes you need, and that really improves the use of your slabs, I think. If you kind of know what you want to build ahead of time, you can then lay out the pieces that you need and use your slabs efficiently in a good way. What you don't want to do, see, I've got a cut here from when I made that square. I've got a cut there. I don't want to get my new cut too close to that, because that could wind up then continuing to crack later. It's kind of what we're talking about with the grain, right? The grain of a cut will do that as well. They'll kind of keep going. But so, there is my fish. Yeah, fishy, fishy. And I'm just gonna cut it out straight with my fettling knife. Oh, I should have textured this first. Well, that's okay. I'll cut them all first, then texture them. The thing with texturing a slab is that it does cause the slab to grow a little bit. So if you texture before cutting, you're fine. Or if you texture after you cut, you'll want to put your pattern back on to cut another one. All right. I totally thought that fit. Didn't that fit a minute ago? There we go. Look at that, creative problem solving. I tell you what, I'm so glad I took an art class. All right. There, that fits nice. Again, I'm staying away from the phrase there. I'm staying away from that cut. All right, and there is one fishy fishy. Here comes two fishy fishy. You have to say it like that or it doesn't work.
One fish, two fish, red fish.
Blue fish, yeah. All right, and cutting that base. There we go. I got one fish, I got two fish. Gonna handle these with care. Now I'm gonna cut that base. I've got this slab here. Now this slab is not going to be textured because it's the bottom and it will not be seen. It's just the base. But I did want to have some, you know, I could have just cut a straight slab, just a straight kind of strip to put under, but then my fish wouldn't have quite as much movement. And you know, it's kind of that movement of fish that make them so interesting. So there's my 3 parts. And now I'm gonna make that last part, the little triangle that just says end. You know, it's funny, slabs are a little bit like, remember, like everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten? I don't know if you guys remember, like, putting shapes onto a piece of construction paper so you can use the whole piece of paper. Think that way with slabs too, so you don't have to go back and make lots of new ones. I do like to keep my scraps just laying about because that way they'll dry, and that way when I go to Raoul, they're already dry, they're already thinner than a fun-size Snickers, so I can just toss them in there. If you take all of your scraps as you go and like bind them up into a big thing, right, now I have to separate this all before I put it back to Raoul, so better to just leave them loose. Or if you want to use the clay again, you know, dunk it in water, wrap it up in plastic, and then it will be fine to use if you wedge it up. Okay, anyway, here we go. Now, my fishes, right? I decided I wanted to put some texture on these guys. So, what kind of a texture does a fish need? Again, we're abstracting, so it can be completely different from what a fish actually looks like. Fun. Ooh. We can meat tenderize our fish, or we can glamorously decorate our fish. What do you think? Which one? Glamorous or meat tenderizer? Glamorous? Okay. We'll do a glamorous fish. So, again, I'm just going to mist this a little bit. And you can see this slab is much smoother than this one, so I'm going to make sure that I get a nice smooth edge on this guy too. And then I am, as I said before, I'm going to have to retrim these because the making of the texture will add a little bit of size to them. So, I'm going to start here at the tail. Just going to roll. You can kind of see it squishing out. Oh, that's a nice glamorous texture. Oops, picked up a little clay there. Isn't that nice? I could change it up on the other side too if I wanted to. I guess oh shoot. I got a little off there.
Anyways.
Yep, it's the beauty of clay. You're not stuck with it. There we go. All right. Go a little on the wider side. There we go. Good save, Al, good save. All right, so now when I put my pattern back on, right, you can see how much it grew just from adding that little bit of texture. So note to self, either texture ahead of time or know that you have to recut, retrim really. Didn't go up much, a little bit back here, and picked up some length. Go. But this is a really fun way to work, especially if you like working with fabric at all, if patterns are kind of a thing that you enjoy. This is a great way to work that into your studio work. There we go. Here, fishy, fishy. Okay, I've got to quit doing that. That probably sounds awful on the video. Sorry. Okay, now I'm gonna grab a wear board and some paper. Right, because I want to be sure that this doesn't stick to my piece so that I can move them, and I want to be sure that it is able to shrink as it dries, and so paper is really great for that. So I'm going to put my fish up here. I've got my little banding wheel. Now, it might stand to reason that you think, well, yeah, I can just pop that right up there. I can just pop my fish onto there, no problem. But the reality is then I have really heavy edges, right? You can see how this edge is kind of heavy, and I'm kind of doubling the thickness there. So I would really rather give it a bit of a trim. And I do that by using my fettling knife, and I'm going to be very delicate here because it's quite thin here, but I'm just going to lay this down so that the fettling knife this wobbling? That's wobbly. Okay, so that the fettling knife is touching the paper, I want to always be able to see the tip of that knife as I'm going through, right? But I'm cutting it at about a 45-degree angle. You can kind of see the angle I've got going on here. So long as that nose of the knife still shows, I'm not cutting away any of the size of my piece. So then things will still match up, which is nice. I remember that not being explained to me for a long time, and I really struggled with cutting a beveled edge for that reason. So I think knowing that you just need to keep an eye on the nose of that fettling knife is very helpful. Does that show up fairly clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
I zoomed in.
Might be easier on white paper, but. And you know, again, the beauty of clay is that it is so wonderfully kind of pliable that even if I don't hit it quite right, if the angles don't quite match, that's what slipping and scoring is for, right? Okay, so got that guy done. Now I'm going to grab another wear board and paper, and I'm going to take fishy and flip it so that I can trim these edges for joinery. So just a quick little run on down there. And now the tops are going to come together too. So I'm going to do the tops here. And that one back so I don't squish the texture. There. So again, with slabs, even now that we're off the slab roller, picking them up with the palms of your hand rather than your fingers will do a lot for keeping your slabs in good shape, right? So let's say I'm going to flip this, which I wouldn't, I would just spin it, but when I pick this up, I put a flat hand under, a flat hand on top so that it can flip easily without putting a bunch of dents in or wrecking my surface. All right, there we go. Nice little curvature. Oh, I hope these turn out good. Yeah, I probably should have practiced before I video it, but you know.
Also professional.
Yeah, it's a demo. Okay, gonna do that little trim on the tail. Bring this little dude up, again flat-handed, to do a little trim on the tail. There you go, buddy. Oops, get a little closer. There we go. Okay, now my first join is the base. So here's my little base. Got my serrated rib. Just gonna give that a nice, quick but thorough serrating. Trim that little tail. Boop, boop, boop. And the trick with slabs, or one of the things to think about with slabs too, is the scale of the thing. Like let's say instead of laying down, let's say all my fish parts were standing up, right? And they would be very, very floppy if I tried to build bottom up. But if I lay something down, then I can add one piece to it, maybe lay another one down. Like if it's a four-sided thing, add two sides so then it can stand up on its own. Here I'm laying down so I don't have as much to worry about, but keep that in mind if you're building taller. Okay, I'm gonna throw some slip on here. All right, so these slabs have firmed up a little bit, are just on a nice soft leather. But I still have a little clay set aside for making coils. And one thing that I like to do is make coils ahead of time if I know I'm gonna need them for a seam. And it's a good idea to lay in a little bit of extra clay for a seam. This is such a small piece that I wouldn't probably need it, but I'm going to do it anyway just for the demo. But when you think about an elongated seam, and you think about that like compared to when you're working with coils. Remember when we're working with coils, we're trying to marry those coils together so that they really think that they're one piece. With slabs, you want that same kind of bonding, but you don't have the opportunity to mess with the clay as much because your slab has already established your form. So if you can make some tiny little coils, we use them kind of like caulk, and they will reinforce the seams. So having a nice little bit of skinny little, right, just a skinny little baby coil is a great way to be ready for that. So I'm just gonna take that, I cut it in half, I'm gonna spray it a little bit so it stays soft while I'm working. All right, now, next one. First I'm gonna do I'm just going to, well, no, actually I'm gonna score all the way around, but I'm only gonna add the slip to the bottom because I don't want it to get all messy as I'm working. So I'm scoring, scoring, scoring. I'm only going to slip one surface again because it can get really messy if you get too much slip going on there. There we go. Okay. Here's our fish. Starting with the right side, that's gonna meet down at the bottom, and I'm gonna press. And again, if I press hard with my fingertips, I'm going to mar up my texture. But what I want to be sure is that I get enough slip squishing through, right? And I'm using kind of a flat hand on this side so that I don't squish my texture down too much. Here it's getting tight on the inside, but I'm still getting that nice little slip squish. And there we go. Nice, and I didn't damage my texture on the bottom. I'm happy with that. Okay, now I'm going to lay in that little reinforcement coil. And again, on this piece, I probably wouldn't actually need it. I probably wouldn't do it because it's small and I'm getting really good connection. But for larger slabs, I just want to show this so that you have this in your toolbox. So I'm gonna go even a little skinnier with this because it's just a bead, it's just a reinforcement. But yeah, when you're putting slabs together, this would never hurt. As much as I say I probably don't need it on this piece, it sure isn't gonna hurt anything. So lay that coil in, and then as I'm going here, I'm gonna support on the outside so I don't push the wall away when I put in that bead. But you can see how the slip squishes out. That means I have a good bond. You can see how much that coil grows just from the pressure. There we go. Bloop. And nobody's ever going to see this, so I don't really have to worry about how it looks. But never hurts to smooth anything. Okay, ta-da. Next side. If you are tuning out now because you're like, yep, I get it, well then good on ya. But I'm gonna continue to finish the fish. Right, oops, I feel like my slip got a little too relaxed there. I'm gonna add that back in. Okay. Lay this guy up. Okay, and again, I'm gonna flat hand it on the back. Are you able to see inside, to see that seam a little bit? There we go. Nice slip squishing. Not quite as much. I thought it had, there it goes. Good, good, good. Nice. Try not to squash my texture too much. There we go. Good, good. Gonna cut that little butt off. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to slip and score these together. And again, I could put in a coil if I wanted to, or if I felt like I needed to, and I don't. I'm gonna slip or score both of these surfaces. And I'm gonna slip them. Notice when I put on my slip, I'm trying very hard not to flatten out my scoring. It undoes all that work that you do, so keep it together. Okay, now I'm ready to join them. So again, if I go fingertip, fingertip, I'm going to damage my texture. So I'm gonna try to flatten my fingers a little bit so that I'm just getting a nice, even pressure. See the slip squishing? Oh, are we seeing our fish form? I think you made the right choice on texture there.
Kind of like a koi.
Mm-hmm. Like somebody's doing koi fish this semester.
That's cool.
There we go. And ladies and gentlemen, we have an abstracted fish form. So I'll do a little bit of trimming. I'll do a little bit of cleanup. I'll put a little fin up here with a hole behind it to make bud vases so that these can be filled with water and then have flowers coming out of them. And I'll have a nice little series, a little school of flower fish.
That's cool.
Ta-da! And break.